All right, so my name is Marc Spears. I'm with Solace Security. We're a local Austin, born and bred right here. We've been here for, I think, 2005, doing security. We started out doing security for banks, a lot of the commercial or community banks, helping them get a security program. And we've kind of grown into a larger conglomerate, so happy to kind of share on some zero trust stuff, which is kind of something that I think is a buzzword for some. But if you take nothing else away from this presentation, I want you to take away that you now know what zero trust is, how it's compiled, and how the standard works. We're going to cover a lot of topics. You guys are about to go on a long journey. So if I don't cover everything super well, I'll be around to answer questions the rest of the conference. So what I'm talking about today is how we can use zero trust principles to improve your web application security. So, we are owned and by a large insurance provider, underwriter, and we see a lot of cases, right? And we're helping companies on the claim side, and we're also helping companies on the proactive side. So when I'm talking about stuff that I see, I'm not talking about some guessing on what the threat landscape is. Our company absolutely deals with every company's worst day every day, whether it's BEC or whether it's application DDoS, and a lot of it just is what I find typically nowadays is we have the old castle and moat architecture we're all so used to, where everyone's buying firewalls and we're still operating off of old school VPNs, and we got to buy 2 firewalls because sometimes the VPN doesn't work great if you just have one and it gets cluttered. And so this new zero trust methodology is really something that the attackers they haven't figured it out yet, and I don't think they really can. There, of course, will be some vulnerabilities, but this zero trust stuff is going to be game-changing for everybody, whether it's your internal websites, whether it's your DevSecOps. I personally do a lot of our DDoS application security work, teaching on OWASP Top 10, helping people get SaaS solutions, and helping improve their maturity, right? That's what we're all here to do, is help get our organizations more mature. So let me move on to my next slide. All right, again, Marc Spears, your presenter. So I started out our red team. I've been at Solace since 2015. I'm well-versed in compliances from GLBA, banking. I go to Black Hat and DEF CON. I do a lot of New York CRR 500, and I got, quite a bit of stuff I've been doing for years. So, and all this stuff is perfect. So I want to do a short primer on zero trust, and this is the part I really want you guys to take away from here. So then we're going to talk about some setup and configuration of zero trust, we're going to look at exposing some internal web applications that maybe would be on the VPN, but we can put them browser-based, using MFA. There's a lot of fun stuff in here. The developer access to secure code repositories, making sure that's under like one umbrella of identity, gaining a WAF on your internal only websites, and third-party access. So things that a lot of admins hate, that bust their whole Saturday, right? Like some guy needs access to the HVAC system. So short primer on zero trust. So the evolution of zero trust it goes back to about 2010. There was several different kind of iterations through the years, but they all wanted to go the same direction. So if you kind of follow the purple writing up there, zero trust was first done by Forrester Research in 2010. And it was an analyst and a thought leader, who came up with the never trust, always verify. And almost everybody, when I talk about zero trust, so they haven't really been into it. Can you show of hands who's using zero trust right now? No, we've got a few people. Good, you're good. So, and we talked to a lot of people. They're like, zero trust means I don't trust anybody. Well, yeah, at the very base level, but it's really a collection of things. So, 2017 moved forward. Gartner was toying with some different ideas, but they came up with the term CARTA, right? So you can go look up CARTA. 2019, a Gartner analyst came out again, Stephen Riley, and he'd been working since 2019 with the Cloud Security Alliance, and he came up with software-defined networking. I think it's a term we all kind of probably remember, and we may not have used a whole bunch, but there's a lot of movement in that area, but it's now called that software-defined perimeter is now what we call zero trust network access. So 2021, President Biden came out with an executive order telling all of the critical infrastructure agencies, the federal civilian executive branch, to start moving towards zero trust maturity models. So a very, very big thing. So 2021, CISA.gov released their initial draft of, zero trust maturity modeling. And, like that's, everyone follows CISA.gov. Do we know who they are? Like, they pretty much are the new forward version of the U.S. Computer Emergency Response Team. They kind of took all that stuff in, and they're eventually owned by Homeland Security. So they're the ones that kind of push everything out. The NVD, it all comes from that whole conglomerate of Homeland Security. So 2023, I got this date wrong in here. Go back one. Is they actually released version 2 earlier this year. So in April. And it's a good read. It's a very good read. And I'm sure we'll make our slides available after the presentation. So it's very important stuff, because when the feds are releasing things like, the known exploitable vulnerabilities, you guys will follow that list every month. Like, these are ones that are in the wild that are actually being used, right? Stuff we should pay really good attention to besides just the everything else. So what is zero trust? All right, so it really is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA.gov. It's also NIST. So the national the NIST released a special publication, 800-207, that provides the following zero trust operative definitions of zero trust and zero trust architecture. But it all goes by the theory of assumed breach. We don't think that someone's not already in our network, because we do have employees. I had a bank one time sent their IT manager to like a hacking class, and he was probably the worst network manager in the world. But he called me one day as I played virtual CISO for this bank, and I said, "Hey man, like," the kid's like, "I'm going to put Kali Linux in the bank network." And I said, "Oh no, you're not, right? We have people we can't trust even within our own networks. They're kind of questionable." So anyway, so zero trust architecture, is more about your cybersecurity plan. It talks about your components, relationships, workflows, plannings, and policies. How do we deal with this? So, a zero trust enterprise. Oh, I went backwards the wrong way. All right, so demo gods aren't being so good for me today. So, a zero trust enterprise is the network infrastructure that's physical and virtual, and operational policy. So we can't. We're going to layer some software to we call micro-segmentation using zero trust, but we have to remember the sins of the past in our network. We have to go and look at how we initially architected, because as I've deployed some zero trust, even with software apps, I've had to ask my devs to go back and re-architect it a little bit differently to fit within a zero trust architecture, to protect the entire network under one umbrella. Any questions on that piece so far? Okay. So we now kind of know there's a framework, there's NIST, there's things we can look at. And there's a maturity model that they talk about, and it really is based on these 5 pillars. And then there's 3 kind of steps going up there. So the pillars are identity, devices, networks, applications, and workloads, and data. So there's a whole architecture to read about behind that. And your steps are really about visibility and analytics, automation and orchestration, and then also your governance. So it sounds like a lot, and it really is. It may take companies years to implement this in their own direction, but the important part is that you start and take your easy wins and really start transforming your enterprise to something that's not going to get ransomware very easily. Like, again, we deal with a lot of ransomware cases, and it's every company's worst day. And we still have companies out there having RDP open to the web. I mean, most mature companies wouldn't do that on purpose, but we still have that weekend admin that goes, hey, I'll just open this for the weekend and I'll close it. And if no one's watching, I mean, the attackers love RDP as a gateway. So this here, I know it's a little hard to read. This is kind of an iterative, the maturity model, and it's very iterative, right? So, you can take this chart, or you can go back to the Zero Trust Maturity Modeling publication on CISA.gov and get more of this information. But, it kind of gives you the pillars, on the left side. And then across the top, we've got this traditional, this initial, advanced, and optimal. And getting to that direction and understanding how this is going to save your organization is pivotal. If you're already under some kind of compliance, I'd recommend you map this as well, whether you're doing HIPAA or you're doing GLBA, FFIC, OCC, New York CR 500, which is probably my favorite one to work with. So. All right, so here's a little closer look on, little smaller slice. So if we just look at the identity and we look at that first row, right, you're going to see that traditionally in our castle and moat architecture, that you're going to have password or MFA. And you're not even sure if you can get MFA on some of these things. So, and then you're going to do MFA with passwords, and then you're going to do phishing resistant MFA. Has anybody read the document from CISA.gov and the FBI that talks about phishing resistant MFA? Good. So I recommend you go read it. It's a really good document. We talk a lot about MFA, and that's what our insurance companies are requiring today, either through the underwriter or the broker. Because again, if you don't have MFA on your O365, then there's a very high chance that the attackers in his last year, if you read the documentation, they weren't brute forcing passwords. They already had the password, whether through redline malware stealer or other opportunities they had. So very iterative, traditional, initial, advanced, optimal, and get your team to at least read this and say, hey man, where can we get some ground here to make our organizations better? Applications and workloads, I love all that stuff. That's what we're here for, to get better at, right? So the maturity model for them, and if you read the document, this will be in here, it really, it's going to be a cost center, but it's also a cost savings to some degree. Because what is, anyone here ever been through a ransomware case? Yeah, they are not fun. They are not fun. And a lot of times someone gets fired, or the organization loses a lot of money. And it's not a good thing, either ransomware or BEC. So you want to kind of start everything with an assessment. Where are we? Again, your quick wins, your gaps, and just see what's there to create budgeting for, because you have to kind of cost effectivize these things, right? Like, we're going to do this, but we're going to gain this. So, explore. It's a mountain, right? So there's two pieces in blue here I want you to really understand, that it is an incremental process. You don't do it overnight, right? Some organizations need to at least implement some pieces because they have ransomware, or there's a live threat actor in their environment and they need to make some really quick changes. The other thing is that there are many paths. It's not just one path. Each organization is unique and has their own really goals, right? Based around their business units, their M&As, all those things. So there's a lot of vendors out there. How do we know which one to use? There's no right answer. Use the one that you like the best. Now, what I recommend, when I go to Black Hat, the last couple of years, I've been looking very specifically at who's doing zero trust type services, and I'm looking for which one has the most under one umbrella, right? There's a few industry leaders, right? But all these companies here are different providers you could be using for pieces of it or large chunks of it, and to integrate in. So, and these are all listed, on on the site I'm about to share. Because of all these vendors, I chose Cloudflare. Only because they're kind of quiet. They move about a third of the internet every day. They've got more POPs than any other SASE provider out there, and a lot of zero trust does go back to SASE. So, Cato's another vendor that we work with on a lot of our customers. There's just a lot of these things. You want to do, uh, you know, like trust keys, like FIDO2, and you can, Ubico's a known vendor, and there's other ones out there. Google has their own keys and everybody else. So, uh, you'll need OWASP. See the bottom right corner there? Like OWASP is very much a part of Zero Trust. So, we should all attend our local OWASP chapter meetings regularly. So, so Cloudflare has their own Zero Trust roadmap, and you could choose whatever vendor you want. I'm just very well versed in Cloudflare, and I chose them for who we're going to use for our own company, just based on the fact that they can handle small business and large business, and they got price points for both. So, you pick your favorite vendor. I'm not trying to tell you you have to use Cloudflare, but I'm going to show you under Cloudflare's umbrella how you can get a 50 free user license for Zero Trust to get you started. And maybe just on your IT team to get some concepts going. It's not going to cost you anything. So, in their roadmap, and they're building stuff. They don't buy a whole bunch all the time. They actually build a lot of their own stuff, but they've got users, endpoints, and devices, and this is their roadmap. Getting your internet traffic taken care of, your networking, gathering your applications, protecting your SaaS apps, right? I mean, how many times does someone buy a SaaS app in your organization and doesn't put any kind of SSO in front of those, right? And so it makes it's good to have one place to get that. After you get your SaaS apps and your data loss prevention and logging handled, then you hit this thing they call steady state. But it's a journey. It's not a 1-year journey. It could be a 5 or 8 or 10-year journey for much larger organizations that don't have the agility, to kind of that smaller company. We have all those smaller companies, and you kind of make some changes really quickly and get some good wins. So, a little bit about why I chose Cloudflare is, their global network. They run about a third. They move about a third of the internet every day, and I can call them and say, "How big is the internet?" And they know how many petabytes that dang thing is. So, and they're very quiet. You never see an advertisement for them hardly at all. And they're just now kind of developing more of an MSP model versus a direct model, and so they're going to be easier to work with as we go forward. So, but 2004, they were initially just a honeypot, and now in 2019, they actually got the word net on the stock exchange. Isn't that amazing? And their hubs are in San Fran and Austin, and we can. We're a local Austin company, and I can just go talk to them. But they have hubs all over the world to go meet with people and they'll help you develop your plans. So a lot of the services they have, again, they're built for big and small, and they have price points for each, which makes them very good. I don't know anyone else who's giving away free 50 licenses for Zero Trust to get you educating yourself on it. They've grown from that honeypot to now providing application services. They got serverless stuff. They've got developer services. They've got Zero Trust, and the network. They provide a lot of DDoS. And in the news, they stopped most of the largest DDoS attacks that have ever occurred, including that new HTTP2 one. You guys all read about that one? Anyone been hit by that HTTP2 DDoS that's out there? I mean, the attackers know it, and it's going to happen. Most DDoS I see is more, I would say, layer 7. It's still port and protocol, not a whole bunch of layer 3. But these guys have a very big global network. From the time this slide was taken to now, it's over 300 locations and data centers they're in. So their points of presence really beat everybody else's out, which is a good thing. And they were blocking an average of 7 terabytes a day of threats. They're very good at that. And their time is under 50 seconds. The internal network's using WireGuard. Everything is I've researched that had positive effects on. They're using a unicast network like most proxies should be. So every data center, every server does all the same services. So the chances of going down are really hard. And if they do go down, they actually tell them themselves in their blog. They're like, "Hey, we had a small problem. Some developer made an issue, and we fixed it within 20 minutes." Here's their published price plans. Free plan $50, zero for 50 users, 3 locations. And we'll talk about more here in a minute as we show some demos. And then if you want to go for their published plan, $7 a user, and the contracting plan is much more. This does not cover WAF. This is only Zero Trust. I mean, we all know them as that WAF company we would use, right? So again, I'm not saying you have to. I'm just giving some pricing for them. So, and if you want to go to a integrator like ourselves, we've got special pricing. Not that I'm advertising. So, the services they have under Zero Trust are listed under these 6 main categories, and these are the principles that they like to really push out there. We've got network access, which is browser-based access to your internal resources with MFA still included. We've got secure web gateway, which again, Cato has this, but these are just principles that they're incorporating on their own. Browser isolation, we need that for emails. We need that for people going to risky websites. I know a lot of people have Cisco Umbrella and other technologies in there, but they have that technology as well. The Cloud Asset Access Security Broker, that is in 2 methods. There's one that's inline, and there's another one that's actually a true, CASB. The one that's inline basically by DNS and IP tells you where your internal users are actually going. And then you can start making rules to block and do DLP or allow or isolate those sessions. And they have a full one that you can plug into your Microsoft or your Dropbox or your Box or your Google, and it'll continuously look for security violations in your policy there. And it's life-changing. So, and it's all under one roof, one browser to go to. Their cloud email security, that's a great product. We're not going to go over it today, but if you haven't seen Area 1, which they purchased about 1.5 years ago, it is stellar. It is absolutely stellar, and it's easy, and you guys can go look it up on your own. And then DLP is also an important topic. So setup and configuration. I'm just going to go through some of these setup configurations real quick that you would have. Basically, method 1 is you just go create a Cloudflare account, and then you would just go click on their Zero Trust in their menu, and then choose a plan and keep continuing. The method number 2 is you would just go to their plans page and issue and buy. Method number 3, call an authorized partner like Solid Security. So, and we would help you. They don't by default help anybody install, but if you need that kind of help, a qualified partner like Solid Security, or if you have another partner who's Cloudflare certified, I would definitely recommend using someone like that. It definitely helps in the planning and execution and understanding, because it's such a wide idea of things to go through. So when you get your Zero Trust, you would go to your settings page, which is in purple at the top of the thing, and you would just choose this domain login. And I'll show some samples of this very shortly. We have ours as Solid Security, but everything's going to be .cloudflareaccess.com, because it's really you're setting up your SASE with them. So how many people out there have a SASE? Okay, so it could be scary to think, hey, I want to move my edge to Cloudflare or to Cato or to whoever you want. So, but it's important with the amount of threats nowadays to kind of have everything, to at least look at the SASE options that are out there, because they do save you some stuff. Money-wise, when I say stuff, normally stuff is money and security violations. But the whole point of that is to, once you push it out to the cloud, you can do things like firewall as a service in the cloud. I mean, if you're multi-cloud out there, you could have, versus having just Microsoft as your front door and Google's Armor, you could have a cloud-agnostic firewall in the cloud provider, especially when you're multi-cloud. Managing 2 different clouds from 2 different spots doesn't sound fun to me. So, but when you get in there, you choose your team name, you enable a block page for things you want blocked. You can customize your login page. You can customize a block page. Here's all your options. The other thing I want to talk about here is the authentication method. So at the very bottom left of the screen, it talks about identity. And that's zero trust maturity modeling 0.5.1 is you want to take and recognize your identity stores, which sometimes are standalone, sometimes they're, they could be in Microsoft, they could be in Google, they could be in both, and start to try to combine them down to just one or two, right? Because really the 5.1 states that agency securely integrates their identity stores across all partners and environments. So if you're a Microsoft shop and you're using that for your login, I would look at using the login method for Azure AD. There's a whole bunch. You can use Facebook, you can use whatever you want, but the two I see the most are probably Azure AD, 80%, and I see some Google Suite people. We have to always make them happy, and a lot of people don't like Microsoft, and that's fine. They're agnostic. They don't care. They're going to give you all the login methods, even Okta. So there's a lot of good things to learn in here. But these are all the identity products you can actually take advantage of. The setup configuration for authentication is really kind of easy. You create your identity provider, and then you're going to make some policies as to how people can authenticate to there. So, and you would use that, and you can create a lot of policies based on your single root, which makes logging in really easy to do for a lot of apps. So, they're going to give you an app launcher, but like the policies that you can create have all of these options you see here. We got email as ending in, ranges, countries. You can really geo-block all this stuff, right? Versus just say, hey, I want to make sure they got to use our Azure AD. But if you're not doing business outside the US, make sure they log into Azure AD from the US, right? So you got a lot of cool configurations to add into here, including their gateway and warp products, which are really good. But this identifies 5.1 a little more, talking about the optimal version of risk assessment, how the agency determines their identity risk in real time, right? We get new users every day. So backing up onto a single data store makes sense, as long as it can do, if the user is enabled, and all the other types of checks you're looking for. Also, access management. Optimally, you should automate to authorize just in time and just enough, right? So if we tie those to some Azure AD groups or Google's comparative version of that or Okta, or Duo, you could really tie in to say, hey, if these users are active and they're in this group, they can access this. Very dynamically. Zero trust doesn't mean it's individual, but if the individual is part of a group, that makes it easier, because I think most of our Azure AD and directory structures are based on business units and what they need access to commonly. So helps a lot. So the demo's actually after this. So exposing internal websites with MFA. I'm going to just go over a couple models and we'll get to some demos. So the zero trust network access we had talked about before is really browser enabling a lot of our assets, key assets. So here's a very simple diagram. I see this all the time. Like the diagram on the right, sometimes let's say you had a 48 firewall, there's a management interface, and the admins don't like to say, hey, what if VPN goes down? How am I going to service the firewall? So they throw that network access in front of the firewall publicly, and they really don't say a word sometimes. So, and that's not a good model at all, right? So all this is a road to ransomware. So if we look at all the ideas up here with ransomware, we have firewalls, web ports, applications that are really internal use only that we couldn't get to work well, that we expose to the public, and we put a WAF behind it or whatever other protections you have. That's not good. It's not good at all. RDP, you kind of already talked on that. And these exposures that we're doing are a lot of times tied to critical assets, critical applications that we have that we need to get access to. So And sometimes they're not tied to a SIM. There's known vulnerabilities and weaknesses. I mean, we all kind of see companies hit that, and they don't have good rate limiting for lockout rules for login. Because we're exposing something that's kind of already weak, but we have to have access to it. So keeping it behind the firewall access with MFA is the right way to go. But if the VPN goes down, like, how do we get to our stuff? Well, that's a problem. So the VPN can also be a big bottleneck in organizations. You have to have a bunch to get VPNs to come in unless you have a lot of money. So this new concept is really about this forward proxy internal IP that you have here in highlighted. So the new model basically says, look, you can lock your entire firewall down. I've got certain assets that we have in Linode for our company, and the firewall policy is nothing comes in. But I've got people that need access things like Nessa scanners and whatever we're using in there. We have a lot of Tor browser stuff for our counter threat intelligence team. So, you have this SASE that's really Cloudflare. Your actor would come in through a public CNAME off of any of the domains that you have on there. And then the SASE would handle the IDP and the policies. Single IDP route, if you can get to there, that's the optimal place to go. And you're not touching the firewall. You have this forward proxy internal IP that's realistically a small VM. It could be a pair of them. You can do replicas. And this would be usually applicable for almost any provider out there for Zero Trust. But you have this forward proxy, and that proxy is really a machine. Again, a small VM. I'll tell you a secret. I'm running one at my office on a Raspberry Pi 4, 8 gigabyte. And it's running about 8 different very heavy machines, RDP sessions I don't want exposed. And it's been running on my desk, and I haven't rebooted it for like 6 months, I don't think ever. And no one's complained, and they're using it every day. With no if we had latency, I'd get called and get yelled at. So, but you can put it on devices that small in your network just to play around. So it's a device, right? And you install this daemon on there that comes from Cloudflare, and that daemon is really a WAF is a reverse proxy. This is a forward proxy, and you determine what gets to go through there. So with that, you can provide. We talked about browser-facing access. I can provide RDP internally. I can provide VNC. I can provide SSH access in a browser, which we're going to demo. Amazing. And other type. I can do HTTP as well. So, or the management port by firewall, whatever it is. So getting that stuff not public or known or a part of your attack surface is very, very important. So the big thing is we don't want ransomware. Right, ever. I never want any of you in this room to experience ransomware. I'm trying to help you guys figure out new solutions. So the other thing that's really good in here is, I'll show this live. This is a good screenshot, but we talked about your third-party assets that need like just occasional access, and the admin's got to come in on a Saturday or wherever he's at. He's got to go in there and give this third-party vendor access. And it kind of blows a Saturday. He's going to have his laptop on him. So with this model, they provide temporary and purpose justification. So you can put this guy on a list of people that can access the HVAC system, or the water temperature on the fish tank in Vegas, which is a famous hack that happened. But you would put a purpose justification in here. You would give the prompt. Like I normally would do something like, hey. After you submit your justification reason, please call me at this number. Because they normally will know you and have your cell phone number, and then they're already an asset that you have a relationship with. And then, because once they submit, it's going to go to Cloudflare. It's going to send you an email. You could be playing hockey, hiking the Rockies, anywhere you got internet access on your phone. It's going to send you an email. You would just stop, look at the email. The guy already called you. And you can give them access for 15, 30, 45 minutes, whatever. And then it would initially let him in for the amount of time you said so. No laptop, just a cell phone. So a lot of people like that feature. All right, so here's a demo. All right, so these are the things I want to demo. I want to show off exposing internal websites using Zero Trust with MFA, setting up a tunnel, create and view an application with some hosted apps on the web internally and some third-party access. So I'm going to take my screen off and so this is basically the Cloudflare access screen that you have. You'd make up your own Zero Trust. So here is the ours, right? And so if I click on this, here's the screen you would come up with by default, and you would just simply say log in. It's going to ask you for your identity providers. We've already set up for us. We've got 2 different Azure AD routes. And there's also this option for email. That would be your third-party vendors, ones you don't have federation with. I know email is not the best choice. There are other options for SAML and other things. So I'm going to come into our Solid Security Azure AD, and if I already have a token, it's going to just let me in, and it did. So your tokens for your identity provider should last a while, but if I needed to, like on my Azure AD, you can set all your users to need MFA either with preferably some kind of FIDO2 solution, or you could turn around and use the Azure with numberings and things of that nature. So, but we've got set up a bunch of applications in here that we use, and so I want to stop for a second and go into my actual Cloudflare itself. I'm going to go into my Zero Trust settings. Okay, help make some of these real. All right, so Solid Security. All right, so here's how you get into your Zero Trust settings, or you'd set them up. Like, we've got a whole bunch of domains that everyone does. We don't use all of them. So I'm going to go into our gosolace.com. And, well, I'll go back one screen. So I'm going to just click on Zero Trust here. Open a new tab. And so this is our Zero Trust config right here. So what's cool is you get some good analytics on people using things, where they're going on DNS. You can come under here under analytics we talked about and see a lot of the team, like where they're going on the network, what SaaS apps they're using, and see a lot of that data. So obviously I got someone going to Symantec, and I can go through and approve or deny. The big thing here is on the setup, right? Here's your custom pages where you can set up your login page and change the coloring for your company, make it your own logo, customize a block page. You can do a whole lot of customizations on what it looks like. So your login page, a lot of customizations you can make in there to how it's going to look like. And then you can turn around and also go look at your settings for your authentication. This is one of the most important pieces. We talked about single root. So we can see we have an Azure AD setup in here. We have a one-time PIN setup, and we have another Azure AD setup. But if I wanted to go in here to add a new provider, again, there's that entire list of ones you could use for Zero Trust. So OpenID, SAML, they're all here. And when you click on them, let's say I want to go set up an Azure AD, like the right side has got really good instructions on how to really get yourself set up for the first time. And they work very well. So it can even tie into your groups and everything else. So it's very good. So once that's set up, that's what enabled me to get in there with my token and authenticate. So And if your authentication, again, could have had YubiKey or other things tied to it. So the login method is really important. So the other things we want to look at in here quickly that we can see is, we got browser isolation, but let's go look at some things that I've made available, right, through here. So the browser-based stuff all falls under access. Gateway is more secure web gateway, DLP, CASB, full CASB. And so if I go into my here, we can look at the fact I've got tunnels. And to set tunnels up, all you have to do is say add a tunnel. You would give it a name, my test. You would already have a VM or a device ready for this that you already probably SSH'd into. And then if I was going to choose any one of these options, here's the code I would use, right? Very easy to understand to get yourself started. You're probably not going to use a Mac. I like to use Debian a lot of times. And there's all the codes, right, for Red Hat, Debian, whatever. So, and which version. And the code actually usually auto-updates your tunnel itself, so it doesn't go behind. So that's setting up a tunnel, right? I have existing tunnels already made that we have. There's one for a Raspberry Pi. I'll tell you, it works great. A lot of people's home networks expose them all. So we have a lot of people putting tunnels in to access our Linode, our Azure, our AWS environment. This again provides you one location to go to without having to log into a whole bunch of VPNs. So very easy to set up. And then those tunnels, you would turn around and create some host names, right? So I think I've got a Linode Atlanta Nessus. I've got a Linode Atlanta Red. So there might be a Linode Atlanta Blue. I think, yeah, there it is. So this one here, if I go configure it, the important part for browser-based stuff is you give these things public host names. Like I've got some things I'm exposing here via a DNS name. And what Cloudflare does, since they already control your DNS, they already create that DNS CNAME for you, right? And it just goes into their SASE. So let's see. I don't think Raspberry Pi has much of anything. See if I can go into this one and configure it. Yeah, so here I'm exposing some infrastructure via that. And if I go into there, I don't mind showing this because you guys can't get into our data anyway, is I would just go configure this. And you can see you have options in here. I can expose HTTP applications on any port I want to. I can expose HTTPS, Unix, TCP, SSH, RDP, SMB. The list just goes on. Bastion servers. And now once you create that tunnel, you have full access to anything on that network where that tunnel is located. And that's really the most important part of this, right? So now you can take your Nessus, your line, anything you put in that cloud environment or the other office environment and make it available. Like we've got maybe say some perch sensors that we're using to gather and ingest and push stuff to perch or any other SIM product you have. You don't have to expose something directly anymore. So very helpful. Let me go on to our Launchpad for Zero Trust. So it also provides you with these tiles. These tiles are there. You can turn around and you get to click on these tiles. Like here's one called Kali MCP SSH, right? So I can right click on that and say open. I hate this part. I wish the tiles open up in a new tab every time. So if I say open a new tab, it's going to open up this through my SASE provider. And so let me go look up my password real quick for this. So I come back over here. My user is root. I'm gonna paste in my password. And look, I'm in Linode right now, where I have a tunnel for my red team. This is, I'm SSHing into my Kali box in a browser using full MFA. That's impressive for network people as well. Your switches, all your different internal assets you need access to make the network go bang. Like, I can sit here and type, and get my directories. I'm in, and we can control how long these sessions actually last. That's a fun one to play with. So if I go back into my app launcher, I can go pick out, for example, my Nessus scanner. Open that in a new tab. My Nessus is not exposed to the web, but now I can go have external scans happen from inside my network. Yes, Kate? Oh my gosh, okay. All right, so, well, that one's not responding, but demo gods love me. All right, so let me blow through the rest of this demo. I'm around to talk, and let's just go through the rest of the concepts I want you guys to really understand coming out of this. All right, so you also get to gain a WAF on internal use only websites because they're DNSable. So all that's good. So developer access and code security, this is really important here because the developers, sometimes they're smarter than the network admins. I know in the old days that we used to have to beg and borrow from the network guys. I need access to my dev box or my QA machine. They're like, no, I want to control your dev machine. And it was always kind of a bit of a fight. But here's a few things I want to point out on the app dev. So the devs do local coding on corporate laptops. Sometimes they don't. But you could control a lot of that through a secure web gateway. You need full permission on an asset. They're hard to whitelist because not everyone has a home network that has what they need. The security need to know is where they're going. Are they working from Starbucks? Are they on the public internet? Are they using the VPN? Are they local coding at Starbucks, on a group Wi-Fi? We want full locked in our laptops. You want the appropriate device posturing. And we can do all of that from here. The dangers, they get malware in the computer, source code or hard coded secrets in there. They're visiting non-business websites. You guys ever heard of the Lazarus Group? Yes. I got some links here. They were sending fake HR stuff to crypto companies. One of their developers is like, and they offered like obscene amount of money for these jobs from North Korea that don't exist. And what happened was one of the guys in that crypto company is not around anymore, took the job offer on the corporate laptop, going to another HR website. They sent them a PDF that infected their environment, and they infected all 5 authorizers to move Bitcoin. And it ruined everything. But if they shouldn't be going there, you need to be able to control that on their websites or on where they go to. So there's a lot of issues to speak about there. The app dev and code security models, you can go into here under their Warp client. You can enable DNS. Cloudflare owns 1.1.1, but there's a corporate one you can create, free for 50 users. And you can turn on things like HTTP decryption besides DNS. And it requires everything to get TLS decrypted, and you can get actually access to what they're looking at. And you can add AV inspection and DLP. And then you could require the proxy through your network for all your rules. So some settings in here that really work to turn on laptop security for DevSec AppSec access. App dev and code security, here's a little more. You can actually capture traffic and content categories, DNS resolvers, domains, hosts, locations. You can actually, there's 23 plus subcategories to contents. There's security categories to turn off, like crypto mining, because sometimes developers get tricked. I mean, or they go places they're not sure they shouldn't be at. So on the identity, you control their laptop SAML, user email, however it gets accessed, and you can allow block override. And then you can also do some other browser isolations and things. So there's a lot of good stuff here with these options. You get analytics like we showed earlier on what they're doing, where they're going. You know, are they using LastPass? Are they using a whole nother, maybe you guys want to use Bitwarden, and they're using a whole one that you're not wanting them to use with passwords. You can control that through CASB. And you can set enrollment permissions for their laptops. Let's see, I got 3 slides left. I'll be really quick. No, all right.
Well,
All right.
You can talk to Mark afterwards.
Yeah, talk to me afterwards. Sorry. I love
talking.
talking SASE. I love talking AppSec, DevSec, and you know all the different options there. It's a good topic. Thank you very much.
And I had an Apple gift card for you, but based on your talk, I switched it to Amazon.